Hi, my name is Tim, and I completed the 2025 Gravel Worlds 35-mile event in 4 hours and 9 minutes. I know I have more performance in the tank, so I've taken it upon myself to train for the next 9 months using Joe Friel's Cyclist Training Bible as my guide, with the goal of completing the 35-mile event in under 2.5 hours. This is my road to Gravel Worlds. I begin my preparation period on Monday, November 3rd. The preparation period is going to entail a lot of Zone 1 and Zone 2 training, about 5.5 hours per week, and we're going to combine that with about 2 to 3 hours per week of strength training. During this period, I'm not going to increase my time on the bicycle. The focus during this period is to increase my strength by adding more plates to the barbell. I mentioned zones 1 and 2, and for those of you who aren't aware, zones 1 and 2 refer to training zones. Training zones are a measure of how stressful a training effort is during a specific interval of time. Zones 1 and 2 are all-day, easy efforts. If you want to train to ride your bike for long distances without the use of assistance, all you need to do is ride with a friend and have a conversation. When you find yourself struggling to speak, that's a sign that you're pushing harder than Zone 2. That's your cue to slow things down a little bit. Now, I'm employing a power meter because I plan on doing a lot more than Zone 2 efforts during my training in the run-up to Gravel Worlds. And to do that, I need to determine what my functional threshold power, or FTP, is. What's FTP, you might be asking yourself? Well, FTP is the average power one can sustain for an hour while their body is operating at lactate threshold. You can track your power on the bicycle through several different power meters. I chose the simplest option, which is simply a set of pedals. I don't have to make any expensive upgrades to my 17-year-old bicycle in order to track my power. I'll say that it's impossible to know when you're operating in your lactate threshold unless you've got access to a laboratory that is checking your blood lactate levels as you train. But exercise scientists, folks much smarter than myself, have devised a number of ways for you to estimate your functional threshold power, and I'm going to go over 3 of those methods now. The first and the easiest is the ramp test. A ramp test is where you start at a given wattage, let's say 60 watts, and you pedal 1 minute, and then the next minute you add 20 watts, so 80 watts. You keep adding 20 watts per minute every minute until you can't sustain that anymore. The last minute that you had sustained your full wattage, let's say it's 220 watts, you'll take 75% of that value, or 3/4, roughly in my head, maybe 155 watts, and that's your functional threshold power using a ramp test. 75% of your final full minute at that given power. That one gets you into the ballpark and is really biased towards people who have a lot of ability to put force into the pedals in a short period of time. The next test is a 20-minute effort test. You'll do a half an hour warm-up, and then after that you'll ride hard for 20 minutes. You'll take 95% of the average wattage that you produced for that hour, and that would be an estimated functional threshold power. Finally, the last test you're going to want to do is a 2x8 effort, where you're going to do 2 hard 8-minute intervals after a warm-up. You're going to separate those intervals by a 10-minute active rest. You'll take the average power of those 2 8-minute intervals, multiply that by 0.9 to arrive at a functional threshold power estimate. Now, which method should you use? Well, the answer to that one's easy. Use the method that your equipment will let you do. For example, my Garmin computer and my power meter pedals will allow me to perform both the 20-minute sustained effort and the 2x8-minute effort. The spin bikes at my gym have the ramp test available and also a 20-minute effort. Over the last week, in preparation for the preparation period, preparing, let's go, I had done numerous FTP tests, specifically a couple of them on the bike outdoors just to make sure that I was testing correctly, and then one on the spin bike in my gym. The outdoor test resulted in 160 watts, and the indoor test on the spin bike in my gym was 145 watts. Given that Zone 2 is roughly 55 to 75% of my functional threshold power, there's quite a bit of overlap there, so I could probably just get away with using the 160 watts and just keep it towards the low end in both cases. Or I could use something called a training stress score. I'll go over training stress scores in a later video, so you're going to have to subscribe for that. In the meantime, I invite you to watch my video, Introduction introduction to my road to Gravel Worlds, which should be appearing over my face right about now. Thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to enjoy the ride.